Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from today. And thank you so much for joining this international live stream with Demontfort University in collaboration with Legitimal Agency in Turkey. Thank you very much for joining us today for this interesting lecture about data in our professional world today and indeed the future. My name is Ruth and I am the Area Manager for Turkey in the International Office at Demontfort University. If you have any questions about studying at Demontfort University or about specific qualifications from Turkey, please don't hesitate to write me an email. You can see my email address at the bottom of the screen. Many thanks to Berhan from Legitimal for the cooperation today. If you are interested in studying in the UK or at Demontfort University, then please do contact him. His contact details can be found on the screen at the moment. He will be able to offer you advice about studying, about your application, and about your visa. So thank you very much in advance for Legitimal and your cooperation today. Before we start, I would like to draw your attention to the chat box function to the right of your screen. Please do send us a message and say hi wherever you are from. And more importantly, please write all of your questions in this box. Please try to write your questions in English. If you can't, then please direct your questions to Berhan via email, or we will ask Berhan to do some translation if it is an urgent question. We will answer your questions at the end of the presentation. As you can see, I'm working from home due to the coronavirus here in the UK. We have a national lockdown. If you have any concerns about how coronavirus might affect your application to study in the UK, please do visit our dedicated COVID health and safety page. You can see the link here. We also have a page, a nice project that we've called Your DMU Future, where we have lots of information about studying in the UK and studying at Demontfort University. So if you're interested, I would encourage you to take a look at that page in particular. You can see the link scrolling at the bottom of the screen now. So we're joined today by Dr. Funmi Obembe'ye, who is a lecturer at Demontfort University. Funmi is a senior lecturer in information systems in the Demontfort University School of Computer Science and Informatics. She has over 18 years experience working in industry and lots of in-depth knowledge of data analytics, warehousing and processing, and has carried out research with various technologies such as SQL Server, Microsoft Analytics Platform System, and Apache Spark. She is a passionate teacher, as you will see, with in-depth technical experience and knowledge. She's adept at bringing together in teaching and research both theoretical aspects of computing and their practical applications. Her research interests are in technology-enhanced learning, open data, data analytics, applications, knowledge management, and machine learning, deep learning algorithms for knowledge representations. And I'm sure Funmi will tell you a little bit more about herself in her presentation. So without any further ado, I will now pass over to Funmi. Hello, welcome. And she will introduce herself a bit more and begin her insightful presentation. Funmi, over to you.
Be here with everyone. Welcome once again, and thank you for being here. I'll just share my screen and then we'll get started with the presentation. So like Ruth said, my name is Dr. Funmi Obembe'ye, and I'm a senior lecturer in information systems here at Demontfort University. And I'm going to be talking today about professions of the future, particularly focusing on the data professional, which is a topic that I'm very passionate about. So when it comes to our world today, you see so many things going on. So you see things happening in artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, data science, data analytics, machine learning, deep learning. And one thing that they all have in common is that it all starts with data. They all need data. So for instance, artificial intelligence, that started ages ago. It's all about the simulation of human intelligence in machines. It was first mentioned, that word artificial intelligence was coined at a conference back in 1956. So it's been around for a while. Then you have Internet of Things, which is about your systems of interconnected objects which are able to collect and transfer data over wireless networks without human intervention. You have your data science, which is really exciting And that's about your interdisciplinary fields that covers a bit of maths, a bit of computer science, a bit of statistics, and it uses various methods and algorithms to extract knowledge and insights, both from structured and unstructured data. Then you also have data analytics, which is about analyzing data to make conclusions and draw out insights from data. We have machine learning, which is about the application of artificial intelligence to enable systems to automatically learn and improve from experience without having to explicitly program them. And then, of course, in recent times, we have deep learning, and there's a lot of amazing stuff that's being done in the field of deep learning, where you have artificial neural networks and algorithms which have been inspired by the human brain, and they're learning from large amounts of data, and they're able to do amazing things. And we'll see some case studies in the presentation today. But once again, the one thing that you see in common among all of these is that it all starts with data. So in our world, we have an ever increasing amount of data. Data is being produced all the time. The smartphone that you carry around in your pocket, it's producing data, it's producing location data. The medical and health apps that you have on that smartphone, they're producing data as well. So it's data about the number of steps that you've taken, about your heart rate, about your sleep patterns, and so on. So what data professionals do is they help our world to take advantage of data. And insight drawn from data is what gives businesses competitive advantage over their rivals, and it helps them to be innovative. And when you think about competitive advantage, it's all about the advantage that an organization has over its competitors. So it's those factors that allow it to, for instance, produce goods or services better or at a lower cost than its rivals. That's competitive advantage. And that's what the insights that are drawn from data can help a business with. When you talk about innovation, innovation helps to improve productivity. It helps to reduce cost. It helps disciplines to make rapid progress in various areas. And you can see this if you look at the health sector, the construction sector, you look at the retail sector. And again, we'll have a look at some case studies. So that's what data, insight drawn from data, allows you to do. So those people, those roles that draw these insights from data are your data professionals. And the reason why we say that your data professionals are your professions of the future is because data keeps on increasing. We're always going to need competitive advantage. We're always going to need insight from data. So even in the future, you're going to need these data professionals. And how do they draw these insights? They draw these insights through the use of analytics. And you have different types of analytics. So I've highlighted the three main ones in this slide. You get actionable insights that you draw from the data using analytics. You have descriptive analytics, which tells you about what happened in the past. So a company from their data, doing data analytics on their data, can see what's happened in the past. They can perform diagnostic analytics to help them understand why it happened in the past, why that thing happened. And from that, they can draw insights to help them. You also have your predictive analytics, which is about predicting what's most likely to happen in the future. Because if as an organization, if as in a discipline, you can predict the future, then you can take appropriate steps. Then you have prescriptive analytics as well, which help you recommend the actions that you should take and influence and affect the outcomes that you would get. So once again, the people that would help to draw out these insights from data are your data professionals. And I've put a subset of data professionals on this slide. The first ones that I'm highlighting are your data scientists. So your data scientists, they're your data experts who are interdisciplinary. So they're part mathematician, they're part computer science, they're part statistician, and they're able to look at patterns and trends and spot them using machine learning, using deep learning, using artificial intelligence. You have the data analysts as well. And what they do is they collect data, they process data, they analyze data to help organizations make data-informed decisions. Then you have your data engineers. They collect and they validate data. They create pipelines so that the data scientists and the data analysts can come along and use data that's ready for their use for data analysis. You also have your AI specialists who cover a broad range of roles. So they develop your artificial intelligence algorithms and systems. You have your machine learning specialists, as well who design and develop machine learning and deep learning systems. So you have a whole host of data professionals, but these are some of them. And these are professions that are beginning to be in very high demand right now, but not just right now. In the future, they would continue to be in high demand. So the data professionals world is full of innovations, and we see it all around us, whether it's in the area of big data analytics, deep learning, Internet of Things, machine learning. It's just full of innovations. And I thought I would highlight one of the areas right now where really innovative things are being done. And that example that I'm looking at is in the area of explainable artificial intelligence. So currently your artificial intelligence systems, they tend to be black boxes, which means that you have some data, you've created a model. The model can do, for instance, predictive analysis and predict what's going to happen. But when it comes to explaining why those decisions have been made, or the different rationales or judgments that have been taken, AI systems tend to be black boxes. We know that the algorithms work, but we don't know exactly what decisions were made and what judgments were made and why they were made. So that's where the field of explainable artificial intelligence comes in. And what it's looking to do is to change this. It's looking to make it possible for artificial intelligence to be transparent and to explain how it works and the different rationales behind the choices. And you have a few explainable artificial intelligence techniques that are already currently used. So you have, for example, Lime, Shape, and Eli 5. So I have here a diagram which was taken from a paper called Why Should I Trust You? Explaining the predictions of any classifier. If anyone wants to have a read of it, a very interesting paper. But what's happening here is they're showing you how explainable artificial intelligence works. So you have your model right at the left of the slide. And so that's your artificial intelligence model or your machine learning model or your deep learning model. And then you have your data, which in this case is a very simple example, but the data that's been pushed in is data on sneeze, weight, headache, and no fatigue and age. And then you have the prediction that's been made from that data. And in this case, the prediction is that the person who this data applies to has got the flu. So from that data, the artificial intelligence model was able to predict that this person has got the flu. So normally that's where it would end. You would have your results and for instance, your clinician could then use that to support their decision making. But the good thing about explainable artificial intelligence is that it includes an explainer. So in the diagram, we see the explainer using the line technique, and it shows you an explanation of how the model came to that prediction of flu. And in this case, the explanation is telling us that sneeze, the value that was put in for sneeze and the value that was put in for headache have been used to come to that decision, that prediction of flu. And it's also telling us that the value that was put for no fatigue didn't have anything to do with the prediction that was made. And then the human can then use that to support their decision making. But you have an explanation of what the model has done and why it has done it. And here you see why this is important. So for instance, this is an example here that's showing you a deep learning model. And in this case, your deep learning model is being used for classification, for clustering, and so on. So you have your input data that goes into that model. And normally what you would then have are your results, but you wouldn't know how that model made the decision to come to that result. But because we now have explainable AI, we can now codify and we can work out why the model made the decisions that it made, what it took into account, what was important and what wasn't important. And that alone helps us to codify knowledge. And that knowledge can then be used to, for instance, train other people based on the expert knowledge that has gone in. I'll give you an example. So if you think about clinicians, a clinician who has many years of expertise, who has seen patients for many, many years, they have a kind of knowledge that is tacit knowledge. So that's knowledge that is just intuitive. They can't tell you how they know what they know, but because of many years of training, many years of practice, they just know. So a patient comes with certain symptoms, even though the textbook doesn't necessarily say this is what they have. That expert clinician just knows, but they can't explain why they just know. So if you take all the data that that clinician can give you, you put it into your deep learning model, like in this slide, and you get your results that the patient's diagnosis is X or Y. Now, explainable AI makes it possible for us to now work out what it is that that clinician knew, which they couldn't explain themselves. Explainable AI would help us to work out what the model has done to come to that same result. And that way knowledge can be transferred. So there's a lot of innovation that's happening in this area. And this is just one example of that. So looking at another case study. So in this case, the case study is looking at predictive analysis. And remember, we're looking at professions of the future, and we're focusing on how the data professional is a profession that's relevant today, but not just today, in the future as well. So some of the things that you see, we looked at the different types of analytics that you have, and one of them is predictive analytics. So in the health sector, this is an example of predictive analytics that is being done, and it's applying artificial intelligence to predict the likelihood that a patient would, for instance, self-harm or attempt suicide. So on the left, you have a knowledge tree of the different factors that contribute to this. So an AI algorithm was developed based on several factors, and some of those factors include the patient's emotional state, past and current risk behavior, their motivational levels, and all these factors were put together to create this artificial intelligence algorithm, which you could then put a particular patient's data into the model, and the model will come up with a risk factor, would say this patient is a high risk of self-harm or a low risk, and so on. And so this model helps to support both your clinicians and your non-clinicians in decision-making. So this is one of the ways that you see predictive analytics being used in the health sector. Another case study that I'd like to highlight, it's a very relevant one because this one is one that was done during this time of COVID that we're in all over the world. So COVID has affected every nation across the world globally. So sentiment analysis was done on Twitter feeds that had any mention of COVID. So sentiment analysis, what happens in sentiment analysis is that analysis is done on a piece of text to find out whether the text is positive or it's negative or it's neutral. So Twitter feeds, millions of them were harvested from Twitter, all the feeds that contain certain words, so words like COVID-19, coronavirus, and so on. And then this sentiment analysis was carried out on them to analyze those tweets that were positive, that were neutral, or that were negative. And then it was checked to see if there were correlations with government announcements that were made at that time. So for instance, when the first lockdown announcement was made here in the UK, it was checked to see that the things that were coming through on Twitter and social media, was there a correlation with the announcement that had been made by the government? And this really comes into its own and is used by many organizations to perform sentiment analysis on what's happening with their customers. So for instance, an organization puts out a new product, so they can have a look and see what their customers are saying and how they feel about it, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, or whether it's neutral. And based on the insights that they get using the sentiment analysis, they can change their approach, or they can tweak something or change something. So again, this gives them a competitive advantage. And that's what data and the insights we can draw from data help us to do. Another case study that I have is recommendation engines. And recommendation engines, they're used extensively in the retail sector and other sectors. So if you think of organizations such as Netflix, Amazon, they use recommendation engines extensively. So what a recommendation engine does in artificial intelligence is that it would suggest products and services to a user based on the analysis of data, which is based on their profile. So for instance, when you log into your Netflix account, it would suggest movies to you that are similar to movies that you've previously watched, or that are similar to movies that other people who have liked other movies that you've watched and liked as well. So what you get is you get very personalized suggestions, and some companies do this extremely well. Netflix does it extremely well. Amazon does it extremely well. There were a few years ago, there was an article that talked about how Amazon was working on getting so good at this that they could predict what you want and what you need before you know it yourself. So you just get a parcel in the post from Amazon. You look at it, you'd open it and think, oh, wow, I really needed this. I just didn't realize it. So those are the kind of things, kind of competitive advantage and the kind of insights that data can help companies to give. So there are many examples that we could give, many case studies, but these are just a few to hopefully whet your appetite and to show you that the data professional is a role that's here to stay, that's here for the foreseeable future, and it's also a really exciting one. So I hope that some of you would consider, if not all of you, becoming data professionals in the future. And something that you really want to think about is when you're choosing your career, what line you want to go into, you want to make sure that you don't just focus on what's relevant today. You want to be thinking about the future as well, because you don't want to invest your time, your effort, your life into a career line that's not going to be there in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. And that's one of the advantages of the data professional role. It's relevant today and it's going to be relevant for the foreseeable future. So just beginning to bring this presentation to an end, I just want to mention that in Demontfort University, we have a number of programs, both on the undergraduate level and the postgraduate level, that would help to prepare you to be well-grounded, well-equipped data professionals. So I've put a few of them on the slides, but there are others as well. And what these programs do is they help you to be an expert in the theoretical elements, but not just in the theoretical elements, but also in the practical elements. And that's one of the things that here at DMU we do really, really well. So you would have lecturers and professors who have been in industry, who are in academia. You would have people that are very research active, all teaching you and bringing it all together on the programs. So highlighting these programs, we've got the BSc Honors in Business Data Analytics, we've got Applied Computing, we've got Internet of Things, we've got the Business Information Systems program, we've got the Digital Technology Innovation program, and we've got a host of others. So just to conclude, I'd just like to say that it would be wonderful to get to welcome some of you in the future in 2021, in 2022. DMU, it's a fantastic university to come and study in. And the data professional is the professional of the future, without a doubt. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for that really fascinating lecture. Gosh, if Amazon knew whenever I'd run out of toothpaste, I think my life would be so much easier. That was really, really insightful. Thank you so much. Thank you to those in the audience for asking your questions. We've got quite a few from me, so let's get started. We've had some people asking about deep learning. So I'm wondering if you could perhaps touch a little bit on deep learning. What is it and how can it become a part of our future?
Okay, so deep learning is one of those areas that it's really, really interesting and it's very innovative. So it's the idea of deep learning is it's a subset of machine learning. So the very first one that you had your artificial intelligence, and then after a few years, you had machine learning. And so machine learning lets you have your models, your algorithms, which you develop from data. But in machine learning, you don't have to explicitly program everything. The algorithm and the model actually starts to learn itself. So that's machine learning. And then you have deep learning, which is a subset of that. And in deep learning, you have your artificial neural networks, which have been inspired by the human brain. So in our brains, we have neural networks, and these artificial neural networks have been inspired by that. And what you do is you have your models, which are built from really massive amounts of data. And you have these models that are built, and you find deep learning being used in automated cars. You find them being used in things like in medicine when it comes to diagnosis. So your screening and being able to highlight in for instance, X-rays, whether or not there's something abnormal. So deep learning has been used and is being used to point out and highlight things like that. So where the human eye might not see or might not realize certain factors, deep learning is able to pull out those factors. But it does it by working on massive amounts of data, and it picks out these patterns from the data. And based on these patterns, it comes up with these predictions and these rules. So it's really exciting area, deep learning right now, extremely exciting.
Great, thank you. You touched on machine learning in your answer there, and we did have a question about machine learning. Somebody asked, is machine learning a bigger specialization? Can you also analyze data in machine learning?
So absolutely. So like I said, data analytics happens in different ways. So you have your descriptive analytics, you have your predictive analytics, and you have your prescriptive analytics. So machine learning is fantastic at predictive analytics, and it's a subset of artificial intelligence, and deep learning is a subset of machine learning. So can it be used to analyze data? Absolutely, it can be, and it is being used to analyze masses of data. It's being used to analyze patterns that people didn't realize were there before. And one of the ways that machine learning helps organizations get the competitive advantage that I keep going on about is you have all these masses of data that are being collected. You throw them at a machine learning algorithm, and that algorithm can, in one of two ways, you have your supervised learning and your unsupervised learning. So in your supervised learning, you have the data and you have the results that you expect from those data. So for instance, to give a simple example, if we were to put together a machine learning model or algorithm to check whether an email that we get is spam or not spam, in supervised learning, we would give it all this data and we would have a label for each email we give it saying, this is a true email, this is not a true email. And then the model will go ahead and we'll build this model. And when we throw emails that we haven't thrown at it before, you'll be able to work out whether it's spam or it isn't spam. On supervised learning, still on the machine learning, we don't need to tell it, we don't need to give it that label. It would, based on that data, do its own classification. It would work out the algorithm, it would find patterns in there. And so that way you're able to analyze the data and find patterns that you didn't even know existed before. So absolutely, machine learning is used to analyze data and in really, really interesting and innovative ways.
Excellent. Thank you for answering that question. I hope that answers the question. We have a question about the location on your mobile phones, and somebody's asking, when you turn off the location on your mobile phone, is it still there? Is it possible that there's an open system or a closed system? I'm hoping you understand this question a bit more than I do.
Okay, so that's a really, really interesting question. And I think it's one of those questions that the only people who can probably really answer are the mobile phone providers. So because I switch off my location, and as far as I'm concerned, it's off. But is it really off? There's a really great TED Talk, which I would like to recommend to the person who wrote this question. I think they would love it. And the TED Talk is about the mobile phone. I'll try and remember the title of the TED Talk, but it's a fantastic TED Talk. So what happened was the guy got in touch with his mobile providers and said, I want all the data that you have on me for the last 6 months, and they wouldn't give it to him. So he took them to court. He got that data and he mapped out the data. And what he found out was that they had so much data on him in that last 6 months that they knew everywhere he was. They knew everywhere he was making a call. They knew who he was making calls to regularly, and they had all that data kept. So is it really turned off? I don't know. It would be the mobile phone providers that can really, really tell us. But I guess we hope so. We hope so.
Yeah. Excellent, thanks for that. We've got a question. Let's move on to more about the course content and the courses that we offer at Demontfort University. In your presentation, you spoke about a lot of different avenues and branches of data. So Suat is asking, can we choose one of these particular subject areas if we enrol on one of the courses around data at Demontfort University? So perhaps, Funmi, if you could talk a little bit about a couple of courses and maybe go into a bit more depth on the modules, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, no problem at all. So it depends on what you're particularly interested in. So like we saw in the presentation, there's so many branches that you could go into as a data professional. But if, for instance, you're someone who's really interested in data analytics, and not just the computing side of data analytics, but you're very interested in the business side as well. So you want to focus on the business side and the technical side. You want to bring those two together. Then you might want to consider something like our BSc Honors in Business Data Analytics. So that's fantastic in that it brings the business side and the technical side together. If you're more interested in, for instance, the business information system side of things, then you've got that program as well. So it depends on what you're really interested in. We've got one on Internet of Things as well. And the great thing is that for some of our programs, what we've done, not all of them, but for some of them, we have a shared first year, because we recognize that sometimes when people come, they're not quite sure where they want to go into, but they know that this is the general area. So for those programs that have a shared first year, you do all those first year modules together. So you do your modules like your foundations in maths, your information systems, your data analytics, and they give you a really good foundation to then specialize in the second year. So by the time you come into your second year, you're clearer on what you want to specialize on, and then you can choose any of the programs. So even though you came in thinking you wanted to do business information systems, at the end of your first year, you decide that actually I'd rather do business data analytics and really get into the core and the meat of data analytics, then you can just change. And in your second year, go into business data analytics. So we've built that flexibility into our programs as well.
That's great. So students really have really flexible opportunities to develop their learning and learn. That's absolutely fantastic. So I hope that answers your question, Suet. Thank you. We are getting loads of questions. Thank you so much. This is really interesting. I can't promise we'll get through all of them, but just staying on academic side and learning, somebody's asked a really great question about programming languages. So is it a benefit for students to learn programming languages like C+ before starting education in any of these areas?
Okay, so that's a great question, and that's talking more about the technical skills. So the fantastic thing that I feel about technology is it's not so much about a specific language. I'll explain what I mean. So technology is constantly changing. It's one of those areas that's very, very innovative. And so a language that was the in thing 10 years ago, we've moved on. We're in a different language now. So what you want to focus on is being a lifelong learner, being able to pick up a new language quickly and learn it. So does it help learning some programming languages? Absolutely, because it helps you to hone that skill of being a lifelong learner, of being able to pick up a new technical language and just run with it. If you're going into data analytics, if you're going into data science, some of the languages that are key in those areas are Python, or R. If you're going into more of like your applied computing, then you might want to look at C++, like you've put there, or C#. But again, it's not so much the language, it's that ability to, because if you learn, for instance, Python and R during your undergraduate course, you might find that when you get into industry, things have moved on and there's a different language now on the horizon, but you want to be able to pick it up quickly. And that's one of the skills that we teach here at DMU. So it's not just about what you pick up directly from your instructors or your teachers, but it's also teaching you how to be a lifelong learner. Because to do well in the technology profession, as a technology profession, whatever aspect of technology you go into, you absolutely need to be able to do that because things are constantly changing.
That's fantastic. That's a very good question, Baron, and I hope the answer was useful for you. We've got perhaps a couple a bit more personal to you, Funmi. Somebody's asking here, in terms of self-study, which one do you prefer to study and then work on? Do you prefer big data or data science?
So again, I think this one would be a personal preference. So I think people are different. So it depends on what you have a passion for. So personally, my things are, I call myself sometimes a data junkie. So I'm totally into anything data. So I do a lot of things with big data and data science. Some people prefer one to the other, but there's such an overlap between the two that I think if you were to do some self-study, I think just choose the one that you feel more affinity for to start off with, and you'll probably find that eventually you would also flow to the other because they're so interlinked, and there's a lot of things that that overlap between them.
That's great. Thank you very much. So speaking of skills, and obviously self-studying is a skill, what skills do you think are required to be a data scientist?
Okay. So when it comes to being a data scientist, you have two types of skills. You have your technical skills and you have your non-technical skills. So I'll talk about the non-technical ones first. Your non-technical skills, you want to be somebody who's very curious. You want to know how things work. You want to work out things. You want to be somebody who's into problem solving. So you're ready to sit there and just keep at it until you hack it. Other skills that you need as a data scientist, you want to also have good communication skills, because you would have to explain technical concepts to non-technical people all the time, both in spoken and in written. You want to be someone who's passionate about data, if you want to be a data scientist. So those are your non-technical skills. When it comes to technical skills, so again, it comes back to some of the things that we've discussed. Data science it's multidisciplinary. So you have your statistics, you have your computer science, you have your maths. You have somebody asked the question on programming languages. So you have your Python and your R. So those are technical skills, but those are technical skills that can be picked up. But the non-technical skills, I think that's just your nature, who you are. And I think you would enjoy the profession better if you have those non-technical skills going as well.
Great, thank you so much. So hopefully that's given our students a bit of an insight to how to write their personal statement and the sort of things that you'll be looking for in their application, which is fantastic. Well, thank you, Funmi. We have lots and lots of very technical questions. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share Funmi's email address, and I'm sure she would be more than happy to answer your specific technical questions on this really interesting subject. It's definitely way beyond me at the moment, but your presentation has really opened up more avenues about data and data science in the future. So thank you for that. I'm going to take this opportunity now to just talk a little bit more about studying at Demontfort University in general. We've had a question from Seher about English language, so this student is interested in English language teaching. So yes, we do offer a course on English language teaching. So you can contact me at the end of this seminar if you would like to find out more information about that. We offer an MA in English language teaching. So I hope that's useful for you. And just while we're on the subject of English, if you did want to improve your English throughout your studies at Montfort University, you can do that too. We have a dedicated English language team that are there to support you throughout your studies. So we're often asked questions about finances and in particular scholarships. So I thought I would just spend a little moment talking about scholarships that are available for international students. So if you did choose to come and study with us, that would be fantastic. And we can offer you up to £2,000 worth of scholarships. So if you are a student from Turkey, you can receive £1,500 discount. And then if you pay your deposit fee early, we offer a early bird discount of £500 as well. So that adds up to £2,000. So please do contact me or Berhan from Editamal if you would like some more information about scholarships. So what I will do now is I will draw this presentation to a close. I'm so happy to see all of your questions and all of the interaction. It's been a really, really interesting afternoon. Before I leave this presentation, I'm going to show you a little video about what life in Leicester would be like should you come to study with us. So we welcome nearly 3,000 students from overseas each year from more than 150 different nationalities. We have a great Turkish community. We have a Turkish alumni club, and we would love to welcome you to study with us in 2021 or 2022. So I will show you this short video of Leicester, and then I will say thank you again at the end. So I hope you enjoy this video. Sit back. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video and it gave you the desire to come and study with us in Leicester. I'm now just going to invite Funmi and Berhan back on screen so that we can say our final farewells. Berhan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
And I just want to thank the professor Funmi about this great presentation. It was really, really amazing. So I feel I learned something, though I don't have much experience or an idea about that field. And if any student has any question about studying at Montfort, so they can definitely contact and ask me. And they have my email already. And that's it. I just want to say something in Turkish as well. Bugün yayına katılan İngilizce bilip bilmeyen veya İngilizce olarak yine Demontfort Üniversitesi'nde eğitim almakla ilgili sorularınız olursa eğitimal.com üzerinden sitemizden yine inceleyebilir veya burhaneteğitimal.com üzerinden bana da ulaşabilirsiniz. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for this great event.
Thank you very much, and thanks again, Funmi, as well, for your presentation and for answering those questions with a lot of detailed information. I know we've had lots and lots of questions, and I apologise again that we've not been able to answer them all this time round, but you have our contact details. We'll be more than happy to answer those questions and help you with your applications or with any queries you might have about studying at Demontfort University. So in the meantime, please take care, stay safe and well, and enjoy the festive period. And we hope to see you again soon for another live webinar or indeed face-to-face on campus when it's safe to do so. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.